So glad. Kathy Clement, welcome back from Florida. Why didn't you bring the warm weather with you? I know this is a little, well, good thing we have it set on sauna mode in here. So wherever you are online with us, I hope that you are climate controlled. If you're looking to get warm, the forum is the place to be. So we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. We got our great panel here, and so just hold on. We got a couple more people coming in. Okay, we're going to get going here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the forum, the first forum of 2024. I got the year right. It is good to be here. My name is Mike Kinman. I'm the rector here at All Saints Church. My pronouns are he, him. It is good to be here. And last year was an amazing year for a lot of things. For us here at All Saints Church, it was the year when we budgeted $200,000 for film and TV income and got none of it. Because there was a series of strikes. The Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA went on strike. There really is a wonderful renaissance of the union movement that's happening in this country right now. And it is incredibly important with the rise in automation, with the rise in artificial intelligence. I just heard the term for the first time this morning, synthetic performer, which is sort of chilling. And I also want to bring up, we're going to be talking this morning about the film and TV industry, what really happened during the strike, where we are, what the contracts have, and sort of what the future looks like for the industry, and also here in Pasadena and Los Angeles. And I do want to remind everybody how important unions are. And that we have several active strikes going on, but the one I want to really lift up is Unite Here Local 11, which is our hotel and hospitality workers here in the Los Angeles area. Hotel and hospitality workers were almost all laid off during COVID, and the hotels only hired back about 2/3 of them. The hotel revenue is higher than it was before COVID. And they're also looking at the World Cup and the Olympics coming, and so it's only going to get higher. Most of these workers, these are the people who cook the meals and clean the rooms. They don't make enough money to live within an hour of the hotels where they work. Many of them are 1 or 2 paychecks away from being on the street, being homeless. They have inadequate health care, and basically we've got people who've worked for 40 years, and because of the pension is not adequate, they can't retire. And what they're asking for is a just contract. And I believe 27 hotels so far have signed this just contract, which is good. There's 30 to 40 that haven't, including the Pasadena Hilton and Hyatt Place. So if you have any pull with the folks at the Pasadena Hilton and Hyatt Place, please encourage them to sign a just contract. And also, if you have friends and folks coming into town, until they sign the just contract, do not have them stay at Pasadena Hilton or Hyatt Place, because those places are under boycott. And one of the things that we learned the value of in the strikes in the film and TV industry this summer was the value of solidarity. And it's the time for that. So anyway, that's enough of my public service announcement for Unite Here Local 11. Thrilled to have just an amazing panel here, and grateful for you all for showing up. So I don't know if I'm the first person who gets to introduce you this way, but the Emmy-award winning Erin O'Malley. She just won an Emmy Award for her great show, The Crossover. I've known you since you were but Erin is an amazing producer, executive producer, director, has worked on New Girl, Curb Your Enthusiasm. You're working on Goosebumps, you're working on The Crossover, you've got a whole bunch, you've got American Born Chinese, which is amazing. So you're just doing incredible work, and has also been a real justice warrior in her life in general. I'm gonna get this right in terms of the name. Hold on. I'm still going to get it wrong. Janet, I'm going to have, can you pronounce it's Javi, how do you pronounce your last name? Javi Grigio Markswatch. And even Janet sent me a really nice emoji of her saying the name, which I didn't know that she could do. Javi is a prolific writer of TV, movies, comic books, essays, interactive media. He is best known as one of the Emmy Award winning producers of Lost and Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. His recent credits include exec producing The Witcher, co-exec producing Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bishop would be interesting. And consulting on Raising Dion, all for Netflix, as well as writing and producing for the first season of Blood and Treasure at CBS and From at Epic. So, Javi, thank you for being here. Toby Miley is an actor and a proud member of SAG-AFTRA for the past 15 years. He's appeared in more than 100 commercials, guest starred on TV shows on HBO, ABC, Disney+, CBS, and Hulu, and appeared in films Social Network, Raising Colt, and A Timeless Call. He currently lives in Burbank with his wife and giant rescue Saint Bernard, Prudence. So, and then most of you know Janet Carol Norton. Janet Carol is a senior talent agent at the scripted television department at creative arts agency CAA. She represents non-writing executive producers and line producers. Prior to the merge with ICM in 2022, she was one of the original 25 partners at ICM, where she was a board member, department head, and led the female initiative there. And she is an active member at All Saints Church and current vestry member. So thank you, all of you. For coming and being here. And so just want to sort of start off, and you've got microphones there and we can pass them around. We probably all kept up to varying degrees with the strikes and what was happening in the negotiations. Can you talk both for the Writers Guild of America and for SAG-AFTRA, what were some of the key things that y'all were fighting over, and where did you end up?
We're literally coming out of a period of time that was commonly understood to be a golden age of television, the age of The Sopranos, Mad Men, all of this stuff. And that's the result of about 30 years of the business developing in such a way that it was possible for writers specifically, in collaboration with a lot of amazing people, to create, under the methods of network television, real quality television. You've got, shows like Lost and Mad Men and, The Sopranos and things like that. And into this, there's sort of the disruption of the streamers. What the streamers realized is, they make less episodes, they release them all at the same time, and they realized that you could pay writers to just be in the writer's room for 6 months to write all of the episodes and then pass those along to a group of directors or what have you. And one of the things that was lost in that was the continuity of creative vision. Writer creates something, a pilot they sell to a network, and then in the old system, you really have that person kind of staying with the show and being the person sort of calling the shots on it and collaborating, but really being the person who's safeguarding the vision. In the new era of streaming, you basically have a bunch of writers coming in, then we basically get told to F off, and the show is made without us. We don't even get to be on set. And what that has done is, because the shows are made for a shorter amount of time, eliminated a whole process of apprenticeship in which writers actually learn how to produce television, which helps us work better with directors, helps us work better with everybody, helps us write things that are accomplishable in budget. An entire wheel of apprenticeship to mastership was completely lost in the last 10 years. So you literally now have a whole generation of writers who don't know what the heck goes on set. That's a real problem. That's one of the things we're fighting for, because you need for writers to be able to at least go to set so they know how to write for a set. They know how to write for directors. They know how to write for actors. Compensation went down humongously because you're going from a system where you're making 22 episodes a year in network television to making 8 episodes a year. Writers don't have continuity of employment that they used to have anymore. So there's a lot of issues that are basically intertwined with how the business affairs arms of especially streamers took apart a very robust method of making television that existed and developed over 30 years and turned it into basically a freelance economy for writers. And so the strike was really about trying to make back some of what we had previously that has been systematically dismantled over 15 years. That was really it for writers more than anything else.
Well, and so how'd you do?
We won, but we won the things we wanted, but the system of television that existed is not coming back. We're getting paid. We're going to get paid better. We're going to get time on set. We are not going to be under the threat that instead of being commissioned to write scripts, that somebody's going to put a bunch of stuff in an AI and give us a crappy script and say rewrite it for much less money into a good script, which was one of our big fears. Because rewriting, you get paid less than you do for actually originating an idea. We made a lot of those gains, but the industry is pretty much a demented slaughterhouse on crack right now. All of the ways that
a demented slaughterhouse on crack?
On crack, yeah.
I'm going to remember that and use that in other places, but that's awesome. Thank you.
I mean, it is a meat grinder out there. Even for established producers, it is in a confluence of issues of inclusion that need to be addressed. It is in a process of issues of what is the structure of our business anymore? How do these people make money? One of the things that has sort of been revealed in the last 10 years, 15 years, is that streaming is based on the idea of limitless subscriber growth. No, that's called a Ponzi scheme. So you've got streamers spending hundreds of millions of dollars on shows. Now they have this pattern of spending all of this money, but they can't make it back. So we're in a period of at least a year, anywhere between a year to a decade, of just the industry figuring out what exactly it is, because the tech mentality has come in and disrupt a business. And then there's a mentality that's like, hey, don't disrupt a business unless you know what to replace it with that's just as good. So the upshot is we've had a lot of shows that have been great, high budget, and also a lot more inclusion. A lot more people have been able to make TV shows that maybe weren't able to during the network business. That's the silver lining. The dark cloud is, what is the business? How do we make money on it? And how is it robust and sustainable over the long run rather than over a period of 15 years?
Wow, absolutely. Toby, but from an actor's perspective, what was last year like? What were you fighting for, and how'd you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the sort of the actor version of that. Actors and writers are kind of industry siblings, and we fight sometimes, but we're best friends other times. But it basically looks like sort of minimum staying the same or going lower, essentially the minimum amount you get paid when you're on a TV show or a movie or that sort of thing. And then because of the streaming system, really like the residuals that you would make essentially going away. So that was a huge thing that we were fighting for. And then this AI threat and synthetic performers and all this kind of stuff. And the guardrails and the ethics around like it could go any way, and that's why it's a little confusing, is you could take Meryl Streep and make like a computer-generated version of her, and she could star in your whole movie, or you could maybe have her voice come in for like a phone call scene or something like that. And so we worked to put some guardrails around that, because that's a huge unknown, really. So that was what we were striking for with these guys. This is what we got. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. We were 118 days, of course, on the picket line. And I just want to say for anyone who saw us out there, or anyone who your own business or your own life and family was disrupted, I just want to say that we see that and we know that that was painful, and we're trying to get back to work now. But we would not have gone on strike unless we really, really needed to. But we felt like we absolutely needed to. So what we got, if that was you especially, was wage increases from the minimum of about 11 to 12% over the course of several years, which is good. A success bonus for the streaming platform basically means if your show's a huge hit, then we get a piece. We also get some more residuals there. Viewership data is being shared, which is a massive thing. Yes, because it used to be, you could just look in the paper and see how NBC did last night, But we need that information so that we can make better residuals. Just improvements in pensions, some really basic workplace protections that is kind of common decency. And then with AI, which is evolving for sure, and actors are in some disagreement about this, and I understand it, that we now have what's called consent and compensation. Essentially, that if I were to do an episode of a TV show, which is kind of my journey as a middle-class actor, is guest starring on different TV shows, if they wanted to do another episode with me in it, and I was off doing another project, they could take my face or voice or something to that effect, put it in a scene as long as I consent to it, and then I would get paid for it as if I was there. There are some loopholes there, and people are nervous about it, and I understand, because there's talk of, well, hey, if you don't consent to this, you won't be hired in the first place. So it's complicated, it's evolving, but what we did do is put some guardrails in place, and every 3 years we continue this conversation. So we hope to continue it like that. And also, I'm not sure that any audience wants to see a computer-generated TV show of entirely, computer faces, I guess. We like to know our folks.
Yeah, well, maybe now, but I mean, part of what you're looking at also is, right now you can kind of tell the difference, but the way that technology develops, we're going to get to a place where people might not be able to distinguish between a computer-generated show and a live-action show.
Yeah, and Erin could probably speak to this more, but we have a mix of we don't know what's coming, and there's some fear around that, because also what is happening now is very expensive to do what you're talking about. So they can't just do that with everybody. But maybe you could do it with Margot Robbie for a scene in Barbie, one scene. Right. You could do it. But it's probably too expensive to do it for all the actors in Barbie. So right. They're all real right now, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, so I'll go to you, Erin. Anything, because you're at this from a producer, a director's, running shows, things like that. What did you learn during the strike? So you wanna?
What did I learn? That's interesting. Yeah, it's funny. Toby and I are really good friends, and we talk all the time about. You can tell I hate microphones. We've spoke throughout this, 9 months of striking, learning, from my perspective as a director or producer who has my own creative vision, I would never want, and having been an actress many years ago, I would never want a synthetic performance in something I'm making, whether I was producing or directing it. I have to admit, there's a lot of people who don't share necessarily the same opinion as me, who want to just get through it. I think Toby's right. I think what he was touching on is the fear should not be that we're going to make an entire television show of 10 actors that their entire performances were created, with AI. The concern should be the slow growth and, people getting acclimated to what he was talking about, the way that we got to this place from 20 years ago where we had writers on set all the time with us that I could always turn around and talk to a writer, to suddenly I'm on a streaming show and I'm like, wait, what do you mean I don't have a writer on set today? The way we slowly acclimated to that, I could see us slowly going, you know what? I just want Toby to be in that one scene for 10 seconds. He's not available. All right, let's just AI him for this one scene. And it's the only scene in the episode that's going to have that. And then the next, and then you just keep doing it. And the next thing you know, you're like, wait, who's real here? So that was something that really stood out to me, that I'm naive, always have been, that I'm like, no director producer wants to create an AI actor. Well, you can't know that, right? So, and also, I have to say, we have made the joke before that we used to work for studios who they're all companies, they're all big money makers. It's always been that way. It's always been about advertising. So it's not, I can't say it hasn't always been about money. But the truth is, we do work for a different kind of company now. These streamers, when we're pitching to Apple or Amazon, Apple wants to know why the television show's going to sell. Who's going? You're selling them a cell phone. You're selling them a new car. Whereas we used to, like I said, they were always advertised. It's always been about money. But at the same time, when we used to pitch, it was like the first thing still felt like it was about the creative idea. And so to me, I feel like we were in a new world of having to assume the worst could happen. Like, this is a product, and what could they do to make it the most efficient, best product possible, flashiest, quickest, and who's going to buy it?
Janet Carol, and have you jump in because you, as an agent and people who works with producers and folks, what did you learn during the strike, besides the fact that you were right when you told us don't budget so much money for film and TV? So,
yeah, it was an interesting time for us, and I think that agents, all of a sudden our clients weren't working, and so we, at our company, I'm really grateful at CIA, we really stayed the course. We were in the office every day. We continued to have our meetings. We talked a lot about IP, things that we could show our clients, because we couldn't send, I don't rep writers, but just generally speaking, agents could not send their clients out. They could not, there were things that we were not allowed to do as well for writers. And of course, people like Erin, which is the type of client I represent, you just had to stop work. Everybody just stopped working. So it was a really trying time and hard time. And also we were really supportive and really wanted to make sure that our clients were supported creatively and just knowing that we had their backs. And it was a really tough time. So I think that what I've learned is, and in sort of reading and hearing, and I'm really thankful that we're having this conversation, because I don't know that there's been a lot of this since the strikes have stopped, because it's sort of a healing time, right? We're going to go through a healing time. And it was interesting to hear Javi say anywhere between 1 and 10 years, we're going to see a lot of change here. So I think that we have a long way to go. And as agents, we have to not only look for opportunities for our clients, which are fewer and farther between, because like they've just said, it's not just going to snap back. We went from here in 2019 to here. And so now we have to, it has to balance out, and it's going to take a while. So I think what I've learned is we have a really strong group of writers and actors coming up in our community who are really well versed in speaking out about what they believe, and they gained a lot by doing what they did. And yes, it was really hard, and I think that we all are here now to continue to support and protect them going forward in making deals. And we're all learning this, right? Like, we're gonna be hearing from our artists what's working, what's not working, right? Like, a lot of this stuff, the 30 pages you can read in any, in the summaries of what was gained, we're still gonna be learning. Like, things will go after for our clients. That may be the next deal, we're in a new day. So a lot of this stuff will continue to be worked out.
For each of these, when is the next deal? How long are the length of both the WGA and the SAG-AFTRA contracts?
Well, you can go ahead and talk about the dates, yeah. Oh,
Well, they usually sign a 3-year contract.
So that's a short period of time.
It is, and that's something to think about with this is like we talk about that it's slow changing. The truth is, in 1996, when I started in the business, the big talk of the town was how there were no more multicam sitcoms, and everything was now turning to single cam, which means you're shooting outside, basically. Like, you're not shooting on a set with, like Lucille Ball. And that everything was going digital. You know what I mean? It's like no longer shooting film. So now all these union film agreements, they literally had agreements that were film agreements and videotape agreements. They were different. And now, so everything suddenly, they were like, the film agreement was the fancy agreement where you got more money. And the videotape agreement was cheapy cheap. And then everything started to change, and then you moved into this digital agreement. That was the big talk of the town. That was less than 30 years ago. And now look at us. Now I can like stream an entire show on my cell phone in the airport on my watch. Yeah. So things actually change quite quickly. You know what I mean? And which is, for me, the WGA started to have this problem in 2012. And I remember thinking, no offense, they should have gone on strike then. But they had just come out of that horrible 2010 strike, and it was like, what could they do? Or 2008, seven. And I was like, you can't, the idea of going on strike every 3-6 years is really, it's impossible, right? So the can kept getting kicked down the road, and the AMPTP got away with it, and it just kept going. And the next thing you know, we have this mountain, which is not the WGA's fault. It's the we simulated to, so.
In apropos of what Erin is saying, I think here's the deal. They move at the speed of money, and we move at the speed of not creativity. I mean, the unions move at the speed of negotiation, the speed of conciliation, and the speed of consensus, okay? In the late 80s, or the early 80s, when DVDs were first being developed, right? And this is the one that we all talk about. Basically, the companies came to us and said, we've spent billions developing this technology. We don't know if we can make money off of it. Will you take a residual that's pennies on the dollar, please, to make, And of course, we being charitable people said, oh, yes, of course, you poor. And of course, then they realized they could sell DVDs, and the next thing you know, they were making billions of dollars. We're getting paid none of that. When I was working on Lost, the first video iPod came out. Not even the iPhone, the video iPod. And the iTunes Music Store came out. And the first 2 shows on them were Lost and Desperate Housewives. And we were all sitting there looking at our computers going, how are we getting paid for this? And the thing is, what you have to realize is that they are in the forgiveness, not permission business. Okay, they're in the business of maximizing however much money they make and then care about labor later. Labor can only negotiate so many points. There's only so many moving targets you can track. So if you've got what we had this year was literally, we had to go on strike because there were literally so many moving targets across the board that all of them had to be addressed. And it was like, and their negotiation strategy is like, well, we'll do that one, we'll do this one, we'll do this one, but this big one over there, it's too much to talk about, guys. We got a week to do this, So money moves at the speed of how much more money can we make, how much efficiency can we get. They actually don't really care that much about the quality of the product, okay? And the fact that they call it product tells us how much they care about the quality of the product. They care about how much of they're moving through.
That's right.
So that is the biggest issue here. For example, when he was talking about residuals, right? You were a writer, you did a show, you did 22 episodes on a network. The show, you got fired off the show, whatever. Every time that show reran someplace, you got paid a little bit of money. We still joke about the green envelopes coming in. I got 18 cents from Charmed playing in Czechoslovakia 2 weeks ago, But that's how you kept yourself alive during the times when you weren't working. The way streamers do it now is, and this was a deal point somebody made 15 years ago. Some lawyer let it stay on a deal that became precedent, and that's how they do it now. They said, well, what if we just pay you like $200 as a buyout, and then you don't get any more residuals, and that way we don't have to tell you how well your show did, how many times it aired, and all that stuff, right? So somebody said yes to that 15 years ago, not thinking it through, and now that's how we all work.
Well, again, that's the history of this development. Is the concept of residuals was made 45 years ago, when we would all watch television from September to May, and then you'd have May sweeps, and then the whole summer we'd get out of school and we'd spend the summer with no television to watch.
Reruns,
Right?
which is,
And
you
they
never hear that
thought-
word.
And these networks, brilliant, thought, what if we took the show and re-aired it? And we call it a rerun. And so all of us would get so excited in June because we would get to watch, Happy Days again or whatever. So they figured out, at that time, all these actors and writers said, well, wait a minute, don't I get paid for it to be seen again? And so the concept of rerun was, residual was created. Well, residual is not the same of 5 million people downloading my episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and that's not residuals. This is now we're in the world of profit sharing, because when somebody like Netflix or Amazon is making an unheard of amount of money that they're not telling us about, that we don't know what it is. Now we're in the world of profit sharing, and that's a whole other, so we have to redefine the industry.
Well, and then you also have companies like Amazon and Apple, which are so diversified and so massive that they can actually manipulate the accounting to make it look like their media is losing money, because what's not incorporated into it is what you're saying. They're selling a phone to you. That it's also about the brand, which it's hard to put a value on. So I'm wondering, as we look into the future, because one of the things that is an article of faith for us is that we're created to be creative, and the heart of drama, of acting, of writing, it's this creative impulse that we have. As we sort of look short, medium, and long term, is the trajectory that we're on, are the things that got talked about in the settlements, in the contracts, on the spectrum of suppressing creativity to encouraging creativity, what does it look like short, medium, and long term? What are there going to be, new forms that are going to sort of, in maybe even sort of a salaciously resistant way, emerge in response to this? So if you looked into your crystal ball, what do you see, Toby?
I wish I had a crystal ball, I guess. I don't, I've thought about that a lot. I think that as everyone's saying, that we'll see like a drawback initially of kind of production and sort of studios and streamers looking for sure things. That could look anywhere from 10 actors that we all know that are A-list actors being in a ton of content, and that kind of happening for a few years, and then it would even out. But I also think, and I think about this a lot, we'll do a brief history lesson here. I'm sure you guys know this. So in 1969 was kind of a big year for film. Easy Rider came out. They spent $400,000 on it and it made $60 million. And then like Bonnie and Clyde came out, and In the Heat of the Night, and this was, and The Graduate as well. It was all like within this 3 or 4 year period. And during that time, like Mary Poppins, Dr. Dolittle, like those were also the big films, as some of you know. And then, but kind of in 1970 hit, and the studios and whatnot were thinking, wow, this is very profitable to have these independent films like Easy Rider. And even Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was around that time. Those are cheaper, and people were into it. People were into all kinds of content. So I think that's the point that I'm optimistic about, is we've seen that folks are interested in all different types of stories, not just stories of, for me, just like a suburban guy from Denver. There's all different sorts of stories being told, and that's great, and I think people are into it. So I hope that the creativity continues, perhaps through independent film, perhaps through like smaller television shows, and we all watch it. So if you like something and you get excited about something, make your voice heard. It really does matter through social media. Even like, this is what I tell my grandpa to do, is to email whoever at the studio or network, it doesn't even really matter, and make your voice heard. Because I think that will continue to generate and hopefully send us in the right direction creatively.
I mean, they can't squash. I mean,
Right.
the one, I think you put it perfectly. Like we're created to be creative. Like that's one thing that they can never get on us. Like that's never gonna die in us, right? And no matter how few of episodes or whatever money they're giving us or whatever, the technology is advancing because some creative brains are coming up with that technology, and it's incredible. The stuff that I got to do on set, before the strike, where I'd be like, I mean, literally like creating, worms crawling in water, on this last sci-fi thing I did. I mean, the fact that I could go, well, can I just blow that up? And the guy would be like, yeah, we can blow that up. That's easy. Like, we'll just do it like the stuff that I can do now that you couldn't do before. So we have to embrace that too. This technology advancing and stuff has opened this world of instant creativity that normally would have been a barrier for us.
I think the big thing about the strike is, look, everybody's looking at AI and saying, well, AI is this, AI is that, AI is the other thing. For me, it's about the creative people saying, here's what you can do with it and what you can make us do with it, and then let us define what the uses of this technology within our space. And I think that's a really important thing. Look, I think the reason that TV got good all of a sudden around 2004 is because suddenly you had digital technology, which allowed a great deal more work to be done in less time. It's also because there's a generational shift in writers. I think that, a lot of the writers who came up during wartime and only wrote about white males leading teams of people to accomplish stuff was replaced by a whole generation of people whose daddies ran off with their secretaries and had really bad daddy issues, And then suddenly television began to be more about those difficult familial conflicts and things like that, And you're talking about a lot of like generational changes that happen, but I think especially with digital, what you see with digital, especially in those early years where nonlinear editing, VFX technology, digital filming and all of that, which allowed us to run when I started working in television, you could run one camera, and maybe for 2 days out of your 8-day shooting schedule, you could get two cameras. Maybe one of them was on a dolly and the other one was on sticks. I mean, you're literally talking about that level of, from now you can run 18 cameras on a single shot. That's us defining what you do with the technology. So the important thing is that labor needs to be able to look at the trends that are coming up and say, we are going to tell you what you can do with this, and we'll decide what we will do with it. Because like I said, they move at the speed of money. They move at the speed of how fast can we capitalize on this. So a lot of our job is to basically put the brakes on that. And one of the things that the streaming revolution has brought to us is that there is so much more television. They don't necessarily care whether it's good. But the good news is that you need more people to make more television, which means that you get more women making television, you get more people of color making television, you get more, the panoply of creatives is changing demographically incredibly because there is a need for more. Now the question is, how do we get all of these people who have been marginalized, who are now being able to step into the business and do more work because more work is needed, to be compensated fairly and to be treated like, the white men were treated, 30 years ago.
Well,
That process
go ahead.
is still very slow.
Yeah.
I was just saying that even though there's so much more content and there seems to be such a bigger platform for diversity, it just still seems to be that seems to be a very slow process.
That's a hugely slow process. Janet, Carol.
I'm glad you all spoke about that because I was hoping you would. I think that from my chair, I see it on the diversity front. I feel like we're constantly as agents being asked to find new talent and people that do represent, the diverse community that we all live in. And at the same time, it's just not quite there yet. So that's something that definitely still needs to be worked on, and I'm glad you all spoke about that for a second. The other thing I want to say is I too am really optimistic. I feel like, we're on the other side of the strike. Everyone worked really hard to get what we got. My crystal ball is, and I hope that we see more multicam. I think that we really need joy and that kind of comedy again, and the studios are saying that they're going to be doing it. I really hope we do. They've been saying it for several years, but I have seen some development in that area, and I'm really hoping those things get picked up. And it's cheaper. And so I don't understand why we don't just go for some of that, right? And let that community speak again, because it's a great way to kind of get out of the gate and at least get some things going that can be wonderful.
I would love for a big segment of television to become cheap and disreputable again.
Amen.
When I was growing up, you had a whole system of television called first-run syndication, right? And first-run syndication, you could do stuff that was just bat guano insane because the price point was so much lower. So even a show, like we look at Star Trek now, and Star Trek has become prestige television.
Right.
An episode of Star Trek Discovery cost $15 million to make, you know, and it's literally advertised on billboards like Picard, like it's Hamlet, you know, like this stuff was cheap and disreputable in 1987 when I was a freshman in college and Star Trek The Next Generation came out, okay? What it did was it created a farm system, okay? So when you look at the people who wrote for Xena Warrior Princess or Hercules or Star Trek, especially Next Generation, I mean, some of the greatest showrunners working today came out of that farm system. You know, Ron Moore, Brandon Braga, Narain Shankar, Renee Echevarria, Brian Fuller. I mean, you're literally, you can look at just the number of the amount of talent that show begat, because it provided a platform where the stakes were just lower enough that people could experiment and become better writers and all that. My hope is that now that we've gone through the strike, it's been ruinous, nobody has any money anymore, everybody's consolidating, we don't know how we make money anymore, that they'll literally start saying, hey, can you make a show for like $2 million an episode again? And I think that will create a sort of proliferation of, believe it or not, lower stakes television as opposed to 5 shows that are made for $100 million a season. If you've got 20 shows that, I don't know the math, it's like 4 million or 3 million, I don't know. I'm a writer, I don't know arithmetic. The point being, if instead of 10 shows like The Crown, you can have 100, you know, and some of them are like Hercules and Xena, like Star Trek, some of them are like soap operas, some of them are like Dark Shadows and stuff like that. Talent will rise because talent needs a lower stakes place to develop.
We've got about 5 minutes left until we have to say goodbye to our online folks, but if you all can stick around till 10, I'm going to have to slip out to get ready for church, but I think we can do questions and conversation with, I almost said the congregation, with the audience. I want to talk just really briefly, and if it's possible, there's another, I don't even know how to describe this, there's another industry that like sort of the Venn diagram is starting to do this, and that's video games. And, you know, before it used to be like, well, when we were growing up, it was like your brother coming over and playing Atari at my house. But it was, you know, if anything, there was like a movie or a TV show, and then there'd be really kind of a bad knockoff game from it. My son is actually, you know, in college, he's getting into narrative design for video games, and I'm learning a lot about this. And one of the things he told me is, he said, you know, Dad, more people participate in gaming globally than watch all TV and movies combined. And then The Last of Us came on HBO. And it's like, oh, it's a show based on a video game. And I'm like, okay. And like, so I watch it. It's amazing. And I'm like, so they just took the characters, like, no, that's the story on the game. And I'm like, okay, so this is like what you mean. And to my knowledge, those workers are not unionized. And you have writers there, you have actors. They actually cast in Last of Us some of the actors who were actors on the game. And so to what, you know, as video game development just explodes and also connects people. You know, my kids play games and they're sitting there and they're playing with people in China and they're playing with people around the world. What impact is that going to have as you look into your crystal ball, or is there no way of knowing?
Does SAG have a gaming, they have a gaming distinction for actors, right? Yes. Yeah. Motion capture, that falls under motion capture? Yeah. So, I mean, again, I don't know, my initial response instinct is to say everything changes and evolves and we're in a new platform, and how exciting. We have a brand new platform, we have to tackle it, right? I mean, it's a new thing. Rather than squash it, let's embrace it and tackle it. I'm glad SAG should be all over that, tackling that. It's like the thing when animated films, when Pixar really made their stamp, suddenly a director of an animated film made sense, like mattered, because there's so many people go, what does a director of an animated film do? They do a lot, you know? Now, it's very collaborative, but they do a lot. So, you know, we have to figure out the crew behind a video. I'm not a gamer, so, but maybe you could speak to it better, but the writers of, does WGA have anything with the writers of video games?
I believe so, but actually, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. It's.
I mean, talk about a residual
Yeah.
nightmare.
I mean, look, I think video games are phenomenal. I'm working on my third adaptation of a video game right now. The Witcher is not adapted from a video game, but it is adapted from a series of novels that became a very popular video game. Look, I think ultimately video games have become a great fountain of ideas for television and film, but I think they're very different disciplines, because even though video games have narrative design and they're intended to tell a story, the reason why people are so engaged with video games is because video games have what I call guy in the place with the thing sort of plotting, which is, you got to find the guy in the place to get the thing, and then, so you're constantly on new quests, you're constantly doing that kind of flow, and you have to kind of insert yourself into the narrative in a way that, when you look at The Last of Us, it really was about pulling out what is the narrative of those individual characters and turning them into something that's a satisfying experience without your participation. So ultimately they're very different disciplines, and I think that they just feed into each other in a really nice way. And I think creatively, video games have been a boon to all of us, not just because they bring intellectual property to us that is proven in another platform, but also because the engines that are designed to power the environments inside of video games are what's powering a lot of the virtual TV production that we do. So, we can now take a video game engine, shoot a show on green screen, and then the video game engine becomes the thing that we use to render everything that goes around those characters. So all of that technology feeds into it. The writers need to be compensated fairly. And the other thing you're going to see is, the advice I give writers now at this point is, learn how to write video. Like, you can't, like, when I came up, it was like, I am a genre, sci-fi, fantasy, 1 hour long drama writer. And I've managed to carve out a really good career in that, and because I'm sort of a more mature place in my career, I can continue to make that living now because I'm established, right? If you're a new person coming in, you can't make that choice. You need to be good at writing video games, podcasts, everything, because that's how you're going to cobble together a living. You're not going to cobble together a living from, well, I just got a job on, Sequest, and now I'm on for 22 episodes a year, and that's my living. It's, you do 6 things here, you do this here, you do that there. So the biggest difference is that TV, working as a media writer, has become the endless hustle. There was no career certainty before, now there's even less.
Sequest was an impressive callback, by the way. I hadn't thought about
My
that in a
first
while.
gig.
Yeah, that's a good show. Janet Carol, and then we're going to transition.
The other thing to add to that is you have an instant audience with these shows, right? Because if they're developed from a very popular video game or a comic book, and they're also a little riskier because they have to be done incredibly well, because those audiences are not going to, they're not going to tolerate anything less.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you know that from American Born Chinese. And Goosebumps, right? Yeah. So we're going to transition now. We're going to say goodbye to our online audience. A couple things just to remind everybody. Next week we have Tamisha Tyler here. Dr. Tamisha Tyler, who is a professor of theopoetics. She's going to gather a panel of black artists to talk about how we can use art for justice in Martin Luther King weekend. The Sunday after that, Nadia Bowles-Weber will be with us to talk about how do we navigate as people of faith this coming election cycle year and everything that's provoking us to anxiety in a very anxious time. And then we'll close out the month with Becky Nicolaitis, who's a parishioner who has wrote an amazing new book on the history of the suburbs in Los Angeles. And so thanks to all of you who are joining us online. By the way, if you're interested in shooting at All Saints Church, it's a great place to shoot. It's a gorgeous Gothic building. We were, even the quad out there was in Legally Blonde. Obviously, if you're looking for a 1970s period drama where you need to have like a news conference, this room is perfect. And so just go to our website, go to the All Saints Church film office, and you can find all the information you need. So wave goodbye to our online folks. And then I want to just turn it over to you all. What questions, thoughts that you all have? Anybody?